Welcome to the Brick Mortar Cloud podcast, where we share inspiring stories of food and beverage leaders in their journey, inspiring future food and beverage leaders and operators in the industry. I'm Jensen, one of the co-founders on Staff Annie, and today I'm very privileged to have Andrew from OUE Restaurants to share a little bit more about his stories. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey Andrew, in your illustrious career, you have always been in food and beverage as an industry. Can you share a little bit more about your journey and your story before we talk about your current leadership role with OUE Restaurants?
Yeah, that's a long story. I actually started off in nightlife. That was my first foray into the hospitality industry, and I think the first thing I did was I did some parties and events back in Sydney, where I was born, where I grew up, and that got me hooked into doing something related to entertainment, hospitality, nightlife. So when I finished school, I moved to Asia. I moved to Hong Kong first, and did some bars and clubs. Did this amazing club in Hong Kong that took me 6 weeks to build and 6 weeks for it to close down. It was probably the biggest disaster in Hong Kong nightlife history. I think I was probably like 23 years old or something like that, and lost 20 pounds. Everything was on a shoestring budget, and it didn't really, it was a big disaster. But because of that project, I got the attention of the owner or ex-owner, founder of Zouk, Lincoln Cheng. And I visited Singapore on a holiday back in 92, I think. I was on the way back to Australia to see my parents, and I just finished closing that club in Hong Kong. That was a disaster. Came via Singapore, met Lincoln through a friend, and a year later I moved here to work for Zouk as his marketing manager. I was 24, 25 years old at the time. So it was a great introduction to Singapore, to come here and work for a place that even in Hong Kong, everyone heard about Zouk. This is in 92, 93, right? So I moved in July 93. I was at Zouk for about 8 years, doing the marketing, sort of founded Zouk Out, the dance music festival, with a friend of ours, Che. And we did that as a partnership with Zouk and him for the first year. I left not long after that, set up a marketing agency for about 4 years, dealing with all the big brands that wanted to engage with young people. After that, my feet were itchy again, and I wanted to get back into nightlife. I wasn't really built for the agency world and all that stuff. And Dennis Fu, who was known as Mr. Europe at the time, he was going to take on St. James Power Station, which it's a building that Lincoln and I actually looked at for a possible relocation of Zouk back in the early noughties, but it didn't happen. So when Dennis announced that he was going to do St. James Power Station, I said, I need to be part of that, because it's a beautiful building, 70,000 square feet. You can do so much with that space, and we did. And we ended up creating 9 bars and clubs under one roof, everything from live R&B music, swing jazz, karaoke, mando pop, Latin music, hip hop, and also what would have been the early years of EDM, meaning that more commercial dance music that took off around the world in the sort of mid to late 2010, late 08 to 2010. So did that. That was really amazing job, amazing project. And then I was speaking to the guys at Lo and Behold, who had been around about 5 or 6 years, and they were already building up a name for themselves. And so they offered me a position at Lo and Behold, and I was there for 9 years with them. And I think that's probably more relevant to people listening now, because Lo and Behold's still around, still alive and kicking, doing very well. I was with them for 9 years as the CEO, and then I joined OUE 3.5 years ago. In a similar role as CEO. So that's I've been in Singapore 31 years. So
It's crazy, and I think that you are credited for being one of the very, very prominent, I would say, important figures of creating our nightlife scene in Singapore. Whether is it St. James or Zouk or even lo and behold, there's a lot of concepts that they have that not only treads on the boundaries of restaurants and all, but also drinks, bars, and nightlife.
Yeah, I mean, with OUE, that was another thing that we were doing. I mean, One Raffles Place is a building that we have a big share in, a majority share of, and of course, when One Altitude, their lease was ending, my boss asked me, "Hey, do you want to take over that space and do something with the One Altitude space?" I said, "I mean, how could I say no?" So, so High House opened in December last year. Sorry, 2 years ago now, not last year.
Right,
December 23. And we opened Nova in September last year, and it's been a whirlwind. It's taken a while to get to where we are, but it's been pretty amazing. It's a beautiful space, great location, obviously the great view.
Right.
And we have an amazing team there that really know how to deliver great hospitality, both for people who are there to eat and people there who are to party. So it's a great team that we have there.
Super. And from your career, it seems like you have been always excited for, projects that are, fun, projects that are cutting edge, that are leading and all. And now with OUE, you guys are also doing a lot of projects that are, beyond what OUE has been doing in the past, few years. So what got you so excited about, leading that forefront of this?
I think in a way, one of the biggest challenges joining OUE was that it was truly a diverse company.
Very diverse, yeah.
And anyone that tells you, "Oh, we're diverse and inclusive," that's not true. It's like OUE is truly diverse. I mean, we have brands that have been around for like 53 years, like Chatterbox and Deli France, which is 40 years old this year. I mean, we do everything from $5 tuna mayo baguettes to $500 omakase meals, right? So that's true diversity. And then in terms of our workforce, we have people who are 18 years old. My oldest employee is a part-time service crew at Deli France, who's 83 years old, right?
Wow.
So and we have a lot of people it's a multi-generational company, diverse cuisines. You got the baby boomers all the way to the Gen Zs, and we that's true diversity. And how do you, and not one to token mature workers there. We're talking about a lot of mature workers, a lot of young workers, and a lot of workers with young families, and everything in between. And when you're running a company like that, where you really have to think of what is that common thread that we can tie everyone together. I mean, that's the biggest challenge, right? Getting everyone aligned to what we're trying to do as a company. Still trying to figure that out, how to get everyone aligned. It's very different. You have different mindsets, different life stages, different priorities. Some people, you talk about Gen Zs who talk about sense of purpose, and then you talk to the older people. The sense of purpose is not about the job. The sense of purpose is taking care of their family, right? So everyone has their own needs and their own desires, and as the CEO, it's trying to figure out how do we connect everyone together? How do we bring everyone together as a team? How do we get multiracial, multi-generational people working together as one? And not easy, and it's still something that I'm working towards and learning more about every day. Because people go, how do you do that? How do you one moment you're doing a party at Nova for New Year's Eve, and then you have a halal business like Deli France, right? So it's very different, and it's really trying to understand. Ultimately, everything is always about having empathy and putting yourself in the shoes of the individuals you're talking to, and trying to understand what goes through their mind and what's important to them, and can we find something common amongst everyone else that can pull it together. And,
before going to the deeper on discussion on the management, strategies and processes, just for the scale of the listeners, like how many employees do you guys work with in your group?
Full time, I think between 400 to 500 at the moment. Not that. I mean, people say that's big, but of course part time is a lot more. But yeah, I mean, it's we have a lot of brands. We have a lot of spaces around town. Deli France has 16 outlets, and then the other brands are about 14 altogether. So there's a lot of real estate out there.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a pleasure to be able to do so many different concepts. And it's a great challenge for someone like me who's been doing this a long time to, like one moment I'm thinking about, something that is more QSR, and then one moment I'm thinking of something else as more fine dining, and then one moment I'm thinking about something that's more
nightlife,
bar, nightclub, and then one moment's thinking about Singapore heritage cuisine, So it's great. I love that. It's almost like my brain's being pulled in different directions all the time, and
I'm sure there's a lot of cross-pollination of ideas as well.
Yeah.
How do you bring in some learnings from QSR to nightlife, and how you bring some?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that could be, especially you guys about technology. It's something that we talk about all the time. But at the same time, there's things that ultimately when you're in hospitality, and that's the essence of what we do, taking care of the guests,
right?
But also taking care of the colleagues, the employees, and making sure everyone's happy. That doesn't change
fundamentally, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing. You take care of your staff, they'll take care of your customers, and that works in whatever. Actually, not even just our industry, any industry, right? Whether it's B2B, bankers, whatever. That same thing. Nurses, whatever. They all take care of your staff, and they'll take care of your customers. Yeah.
So coming from a very diverse kind of brand structure and offering, many of our listeners might be business owners that are also looking to open a second kind of concept, second kind of brand that may not be directly related to the first. Just want to learn a little bit from your processes and thoughts. How did you structure your teams to manage the different brands? Do each brand manage pretty independently, or do you guys collaborate in certain sense? How do you structure your teams actually? Just to learn a bit from that.
In terms of how we came up with the concepts, a lot of the ideas were, we had these brands that existed before. Outcome was only set up in 2019, right? So we brought the brands together that were already under OUE somewhere, and we brought them together to be under this division. And from there, you could sort of look at some brands, how would you take that brand and leverage it? So for example, with Shizen Hanten, which is our 1 Michelin star restaurant, we came up with a casual concept called Chen's.
Amazing mapo tofu.
Yeah. And the whole idea was take something that was already very considered, very high end, and spin it off, just like Armani with Armani Exchange or AX or whatever else he's done, all those years. So diffusion brands, I suppose. And same, I would say, when we took Chatterbox overseas, we took Chatterbox. Came up with concepts like Chatterbox Cafe and Express, which are 1 level or 2 levels down from the OG, which is at Hilton. So it's all about taking what you have, which is a brand, and then how do you spin that off, or how do you leverage it, or how do you create something that works and keeps the brand and the depth of concept further. So. Right. In terms of how the businesses are run, I mean, we have general managers for each business unit. We have shared services for marketing, HR, IT, legal, and finance. Right. So I would say the shared services have a very complicated job because that's where you're being pulled in different directions as well, because you're managing the whole marketing team or the whole HR team, and dealing with the various business units and what have you. But yeah, it's also having just really strong leaders in the team who are independent, who know how to tap on resources, who know how to collaborate with other brands if need be, or be on their own if need be. So just good experienced general managers who understand how to run a business, who take ownership of the business, and treat it as their own, who are very, very detailed and understand how the numbers work and how to find operational efficiency, as well as optimizing manpower. And they may not be marketing experts, sure, a lot of ops people are not, but that's where the shared services come in. Right. That's what they do, is to come in and help the business units thrive in the different spaces that they exist in.
Right. So I've got two questions here that are a little bit deeper onto this management strategy and leadership side of things. I think you're a really empathetic and a leader that have went through a lot of such processes and strategy. What makes a good ops leader? And in many organizations, we do see the first ops leader being maybe a restaurant manager first, and then after which they become like an area manager, and then like a head of maybe a cluster or like a brand, and then after which is there a director of ops or a COO kind of role where you take a lot more responsibility on the overall strategy and all. Maybe I would like to learn from your experience. How do you see the competency as well as expectations on maybe some of these layers? How you think about it, and how has your responsibility as well changed as you get more senior in this leadership of operating such a complex.
I think when you start off in the industry, you enter at the lowest level. Your passion for what you do comes across, right? And you learn the job quite quickly. So I'm talking about front of house, right? So you learn the job quite quickly, and within a few months, you sort of know everything. You think you know everything that you're supposed to do in terms of the actual day-to-day job, and the skills are always there that you can learn. And so even if you've never waited tables before, you do it within 3 months, you can do it, right? So how do you get to the next level? I think that's all about leadership, and leadership has nothing to do with how experienced you are. Leadership has nothing to do with how old you are. I think leadership is just your attitude, your mindset of how to affect change. I think the Disney Institute calls it, managing anyone that can manage positive change, right? So, or lead positive change. So, I think moving up, knowing everything about a menu or about how to run operation, how to do a closing, how to serve guests, that's all great. But to move up, it's about leadership. So it's about how do you teach that to the next level? How do you teach it without necessarily micromanaging it, but letting them learn and making mistakes, and then guiding them along, that they will start respecting you. And then it's this whole thing of being able to plan ahead, let go of things that you used to do, let other people do, and your role as you go up further and further, it's very much a coach, someone that is there to guide. And the hardest thing a lot of people when they move up is letting go of that job they used to do, right? And taking on the new role that they're supposed to have. So not everyone thrives in if you move up. Sometimes you hit a ceiling and that's it. Then you see many people coming from other industries that come in at a high level because you're not looking for someone that maybe have used to done operations. You're looking for someone that understands how to manage people and how to manage systems. So for me, I've had to learn all that. I have to let go of all the things I used to do 20, 30 years ago and just focus on the bigger picture stuff, focus on the planning, not on the day-to-day stuff, focus on strategy, and just ways of driving the business in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think I'll plan it further than that because I think this market and this industry changes so fast and so drastically that I think plans go out the window beyond a certain period. But I think it's really about learning how to, when you're moving up the ladder, how to let go of what you used to do, how to inspire the people below you, motivate them, engage them, how to be the leader that how to trust your people so they can trust you, and there's a whole bunch of stuff here. I mean, it's all those sort of things.
One of the things that people always talk about is also being a lot more metrical in terms of like numbers or KPIs and measurements and goals. How important is that?
One thing I always tell people, when I have this presentation, I do this for students. One of the things I always tell them, if you can write well, grammatically correct, and if you can add, subtract, minus, divide and multiply, you should be fine, all right? And you don't need trigonometry and all that stuff, or whatever stupid things that we used to learn, right. Calculus, you don't need all that stuff. Just know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and know how to write well and be grammatically correct, because I think those really fundamentals of school are really important as you work in our industry, because a lot of people are not very articulate or not very, they don't know how to write, they don't communicate, and that is very important. So I always tell them, try to learn how to write or practice reading and getting your communicate your message out better, right? Then of course the maths are important. Basic maths are important because you need to know how to do the sums. You need to work out, whether it's average check, return on investment, whatever. You need to know the stuff. Obviously, computers and everything helps you do that, but I think there should be some basic, mathematics in there that you can't ignore, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. But how about when you look at opening a new concept, right? Like you guys have a new nightclub that you guys open. When you think about like numbers, you definitely will have things like your sales targets, and as well as your labor cost ratios or your what we call food cost ratios and all. And you guys are such a diverse group. I'm sure the COGS that you guys have for maybe the heritage brand like Chatterbox versus the COGS that you have for maybe the one Michelin star restaurant is going to be totally different. So how do you then manage the brands? Like how do you set those goals? Is it more like, this is what you've done before historically and let's improve on that, or is there like some benchmarking, or how do you manage that kind of stuff?
One typical measure that is very used widely in the US is what they call the prime costs, which is basically your food costs plus your labor costs. And they say that in America that between 55% and 65% is the sweet spot of what that is. And ultimately, if your food cost is low and your manpower cost is high, it's okay. If your food cost is high and your manpower cost is low, that's okay. I think that's where there's no right or wrong. But I think it's more about those two are the key things. I think rental is a big component in Asia because it can be really high.
Do you guys have the advantage of being, part of the group, right?
No. The rental that we pay now in buildings is fair rent. No, we can't do that. But I have to admit, OUE is a pretty good landlord. I'm not saying that. No, because they're fair, and I hear that from other people even before they join their company. So. Right. And I think when you look at our leases, it's pretty cool. But yeah, and I think it's all about. I think rentals in Asia generally can be a little bit challenging because the way the mindset is compared to other countries where you can get 10, 20-year leases and no hassle there, right? And they just leave you alone. But yeah, it's a very different thing, I suppose. So. So the prime cost is something it's quite a good way to gauge it. So
how do you guys manage prime costs across the different concepts? Do you do like weekly meetings where the business units will report, hey, this is what we've been doing for food costs, or this is what we're doing for labor?
No, we just do that on a monthly basis. We look at it, and usually we're not too far off. And,
right.
And I think, manpower optimization is really important, right? I think I'm meeting you guys this week to talk about that as well. But how to get the best out of scheduling and knowing your sales trends, and how to optimize your manpower the best. So for us, it's really you have to know your numbers. You have to be the strategies and policies set in place to manage your costs have to be in place, and a lot of tricks out there. Not say tricks, but just a lot of little best practices and rules of thumb that we can use. Say for food costs, you talk about menu engineering. How do you get your food costs lower? How do you how do you bring your food costs down? And there's many ways of doing it, and it depends on how you manage your costs and how you want to do that.
Right. Is there a project that you went through in the last few years that you did maybe some kind of menu engineering which result in a lot more efficiency and profitability of a particular concept that you oversaw?
I think I'll say Chen's has done a good job there.
Right.
I think we really did a couple of years ago. We were looking at a new menu. It was still growing brand, and we weren't happy with the performance of one particular outlet. So we looked at the menu, we looked at all the recipes, all the pricing, and it wasn't necessarily about increasing prices, right?
You got a bundling kind of strategy.
Yeah, you can do
right?
that. Yeah. You can look at your portion size. because some people don't want to order something so big, and so yeah, it's a whole bunch of factors you look at. How popular the dish is, you look at your ingredients, you look at your your supply chain for those particular dishes, and yeah, so many things to look at, and yeah, it can be very, very lucrative if you do it right and know how to find those star items. The dog items may still need to be on the menu for certain reasons, but the star items are what you want to find. The ones that are very popular but also have very high profit margins. So getting people to understand, how to look at your different dishes and everything. And, yeah.
Was there an operational, mistake or something that you have went through before that resulted in, hey, we should have done something instead, that we could share with our audience on some folklore that people might think that, hey, this is the best way to do it, but actually,
I'll share a story. This is a story that a friend of mine, his name is Jeffrey Tai. He teaches at Temasek Poly. He teaches a F&B revenue management course. And I attended that course in 2014, I think. And I'm really sending people. I'm still sending people to his course. Right? It's a 2 or 3 day course, and he always gives us an example, and he always tests everyone out, and everyone usually fails it. But luckily, I had read something a few days earlier, so I got it right. So, the story is this: is it better to sell a $10 fish at 30% cost, or $20 steak at 50% cost? And everyone goes, but better to sell the fish at 30% cost because it's a lower cost. Steak is 50% cost. Wow, it's so expensive. I said, no, you do the maths. So you look at the absolute contribution margin, not the percentage. You look at the contribution margin. So if you sell the fish at $10 at 30% cost, you only make $7.
Right.
Sell the steak at $20 at 50% cost, you make $10. So you want to sell more steak. So again, people are so used to low food cost percentage, low food cost. That's only works when you look at the totality, right? Your food cost totality is important.
Right.
When it comes to individual items, it's not the percentage your cost, it's the margin, the dollar
value
that
margin.
You bank in, that's important.
Right. I wish I had this class from you or Mr. Tai, before, because before Staff Any, I actually operate a restaurant, a bar called Sticky Fingers, and I made that mistake of actually, trying to sell higher margin products rather than absolute margins product. And now that you mentioned that,
you probably never saw a bottle of wine before, did you?
I did, and the thing is that I tried to do something really stupid. I put the wine at 30%, and then when I get the expensive wine, the wines become like $700, and then it's like
you saw nothing, right?
That doesn't make sense. Yeah.
That's why for wines, usually we look at the cost at maybe 40-45%, right? Because that dollar that you make, that is more than everything else that you're trying to do at 30%.
Right.
So it's just looking at the right lens, and yeah. So he asks that question every single time. He has been asking for like 10 years at his class.
Everybody gets it wrong.
And most people get it wrong because they just keep thinking of, low cost percentage. I said, no, it's not. It's the dollar contribution margin you actually bank in. That's what you're looking at, right?
Right. Is there also a similar angle about managing the labor cost then? Is there something that about, salaries and, paying people rates and whatnot? Is there also similar analogies on that story?
Well, what can I say about that? I think depending on your concept, there's a philosophy which we practice at High House in Nova, is that instead of hiring 10 people at this salary, you hire 6 people at a much higher salary. Same budget, but those people that you hire, you're paying them a lot more, right? So you get, maybe the better people will come for this job. And they can do the job of 1.5 people, maybe 2 people, because you're paying them higher. So instead of coming at this low that no one's going to even budge to want to apply for the job, offer a higher salary but hire less people.
Right.
And of course, these people can't be newbies, right? They have to be experienced people that are worth that money.
Right.
And there are people out there who want to be paid well, not interested necessarily to become a manager, but they want to be paid well because they love serving guests, they love interacting with guests, and these are your best staff. These are ones who everyone name checks on Google reviews, and they are well rewarded because they are that good. But everyone still wants to come in and this, I can't pay too high. But then you won't get staff,
Right.
And then but then you can't compromise. You can't then look for people who have no experience to come in at that salary. Obviously, that's going to be a problem. But because we have but you can't apply this to every restaurant in our group.
Exactly, like how do you do it for Delifrance?
You can't. So that's the whole thing, right? So you have to mix it, and but at some place, Delifrance will have to move up. It has to move up,
right?
And offer salaries that will attract better quality staff, and that will then be
more productive.
Yeah. Everyone's more productive, more efficient. They're good at better upselling, better enhancing the guest experience, and then the revenue goes up.
Right.
So, but you have to be patient about that. You have to plan it out, but it is possible. Yeah.
Right. And going back to the strategy, apart from the tactical, operational, and management sharing you had, how do you determine to open the next Delifrance outlet or the next chance or the next
Location,
concept, the scale, right?
Location.
Is it mainly, I got a good location, good footfall, good, rent, and I should go in because my concept works? Yeah. Is location the main only?
Location or with the right rental, that is the main thing.
Right.
And we have a few parameters. I mean, I think for us, Delifrance works really well in the heartlands. We also, as everyone knows, we have a great presence in hospitals, and people love us there. So, we're not so much in the sort of city areas anymore, but it's because people don't.
And to guide some of the more newer entrepreneurs in the food and beverage scene, when you talk about good location or good rental opportunity, is it mainly by looking at like footfall and like the ideal customer profile in that area, or how do you actually determine, this is a great location, we need to
I don't have a little red book on that, but I mean it's more about. I mean, sometimes you can be in a great mall, right? But the location just happens to be the wrong location.
Right, wrong corner.
Wrong neighbors, wrong floor. So it's hard to. You can't say, this mall has great footfall, let's go there. Right. But if you're in the worst location, the one that's hidden away, the one that is, the neighbors are not, don't help you in any way. So. Maybe it's not.
So if you have a leasing team that comes back to say, hey Andrew, there's this new mall in town, we got this slot that we talked to that's kind of good, and you'd be like, I like this developer, I trust them a lot. You go down for spot check. What will you look out for? So the first thing I heard just now, you said that you look at the corner and footfall kind of like flow. The second thing you look at is neighbors to see if there's like synergistic, kind of neighbors, right? What else do you look at?
We had one restaurant that was located in a very busy mall. And we were at a certain price point, and our neighbors were at a much lower price point. So it wasn't helpful for us because people that were buying from our neighbors were at this, their affordability is this level.
Right.
And we were at this level. So they probably wouldn't want to buy from us because we're too expensive for them.
Right.
But if we're on another floor, we could be better. But then the other floor charges higher rental.
Right.
So we have to weigh all those different data points up. Yeah.
Right. Then when we talk about also business strategy for amplifying productivity and all, apart from things that you cannot control, how is business technology and innovation being employed by the group and yourself? What are some things that you guys look at?
I mean, we do what everyone else uses these days. I mean, we have, everyone has a reservations table management platform. CRM, QR code ordering. We also, do employee engagement surveys through technology. We have events management software as well to handle our events for some of the brands. We have a software that helps us with bottle inventory at High House.
Right.
We look for different things. We have one on guest feedback monitoring, so like a social media listening. We're using what everyone else is using, I suppose.
And how do you guys think about such innovation? Does the different BU kind of propose hey Andrew, I want to think about doing this and they bottom up? How do you?
I don't. I know some companies will say, we need to do this and everyone must follow, but our concepts are so diverse we can't impose that. So what we do is, every Tuesday morning I have a meeting with all my general managers and heads of department, and we meet every Tuesday morning, and it's not a very long meeting, but it's 30 minutes, just to share with each other what everyone's working on, And and there's also to have what happens after the meeting. A lot of side conversations happen, and whether you're working with whichever delivery platform or whichever reservation platform or whoever else vendor you have, it's for them to look at what they want, discuss it with their colleagues, and if they can go in together and negotiate something, go for it. I won't impose anything because our concepts are so different, and even the ones that you think could follow the same software actually don't. And then the ones that you will never think would follow the same software actually do. So who's to say what it is? So ultimately, you got to give it to the people in charge of the brand, the ones who are doing the day-to-day, and they know what is best. But my role is to open their minds and ideas to what is out there.
Right.
But the final decision is theirs, not
Right.
mine. I don't impose that on them because I'm not there on a day-to-day basis running their restaurants, right? So, but I can open their minds to what is available. Show them so-and-so's using this, so-and-so's using this, so-and-so's using this. So,
That's awesome leadership, man. Like, I always thought that for groups, they might want to impose like a standardized ERP, a standardized this workflow, standardized everything.
Or ERP would, because that is quite
still
a natural.
okay.
And a lot of it
at least on ERP, at
but
least.
a lot of it's
Back end on that
because
sense.
it's behind the scenes.
Right.
The front end stuff, which is customer focus,
Right.
that's where I want
Flexibility and
because
stuff.
you've got to give it to them because your customers are different.
Right.
Back end, the people doing it are the same people, right? So
right.
That's not so bad. But if it's customer facing, it has to be driven by the people on the ground
Right.
who deal with the guests every day,
Right.
not the people sitting in the office, right? But if you're only doing back end stuff, that's because the office people will be the ones doing it. So it makes sense if it's all aligned. But yeah.
Super. You've been in the restaurant scene and bar scene for so long. Is there any prediction on any new innovation they've been seeing that's pretty exciting to the scene, or like would you like to see some things coming up to solve any problems that you're facing? Any projections or forecasts for tech changing the food and beverage scene a little bit?
Not at this moment. I mean, I think we've just obviously had the year of where Gen AI had started to make its way into what we're doing, and I think that's obviously never going to go away, and it's going to evolve more. It'll be very exciting to see how it evolves. I mean, people talk about robots still, and I mean, I hope they keep. I don't know. I have not thought of a solution that I need, but I think the AI bit is really important. I think being able to handle all the manual tasks, all the things and then leaving the humans to do the things that require human touch and problem solving and having empathy versus I don't know if AI can have empathy. But I'm sure it will one day. I'm sure we'll have one day. But yeah, in the meantime, it's let the humans do the human work and let the machines do the repetitive, automated or manual, whatever it is that you do. Yeah.
Super. I'm going to move on to the quickfire round to ask you a few quick questions, and you try to answer them as short as you can. So the first question I'd like to ask is that who is someone in the industry that you've learned a lot from that you'd like to shout out?
I'll give you someone that I really look up to, has inspired me. It's only someone I sort of reconnected recently because I watched a documentary on him. There's a guy called Michael Chow who founded the Mr. Chow restaurants in London, New York, LA. I mean, he was a Chinese expat. I use the word Chinese expat in the 70s, who had the coolest restaurant in London, New York, and LA in the 70s. And he was way ahead of his time. And I recently watched a documentary that he did of his life, and wow, he was someone who I knew of many years ago. Then we forgot about him and just recently reconnected with him through that documentary. And it's like, wow, just someone that really has inspired me, and someone who was ahead of his time and taking risks as a Chinaman, living in the West, and not just the West anywhere, but London, New York, LA. I mean, come on, Hollywood. So that was someone that I would say really inspired me and was a real, trailblazer for Asian food in the West, I suppose. Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would like to give yourself if you were to start over again?
Know when to switch off and how to switch off. Yeah.
If you have a kid or a really loved one that wants to join you in this industry, to be like, hey, Andrew, I want to be part of your team and stuff, what will you say to him or her?
Of course, I don't get too drunk, but I should say that to myself. But anyway, that's a long story.
If you were to dine at one of your concepts, next week for a party with good friends, where will you go and what will you order?
I would like to have a lobster laksa at Chatterbox with a glass of Sauvignon Blanc.
That's crazy cool. How should people interested in following your journey follow you?
I suppose, LinkedIn, you can follow me. I mean, I post once in a while. I go through spurts and spats, I suppose. When a lot of things happen, I just post frequently. Then I don't post for months because nothing inspires me or nothing. Yeah, but I would never call myself a thought leader, but I do have a point of view on certain things once in a while. So yeah.
If there's someone in the industry that would like to learn from you, would you be willing to offer a coffee session or a call?
Yeah. I do quite a bit of that now. I do quite a bit of mentoring from people who work in the industry to companies as well as students. So yeah, I do a bit of that already. Yeah.
Super. We are coming to the end of our session today. Is there any parting words or final advice you would like to give food entrepreneurs, business owners, operation leaders, and all in listening to the podcast?
I think ultimately, to really survive in this industry, and many people may not agree with me on this, you really have to love what this is about. You have to love the long hours. You have to love the customers who can be really painful. You have to love that you are on call all the time. And in a way, you're always in the places that you are running. I mean, people know me. Okay. When I'm having lunch, obviously you eat somewhere near the office, but often people will say, do you go to any restaurants that are not your own? I said, no, I don't. Because, and I should go out and see other people's restaurants because I should see what's going on in the thing. But I have people around me who tell me all this stuff. So, but if you don't enjoy being in your own places and you can't spend time in your own places, then maybe this is not what you should be in. And you should always do this for people often say, oh, why are you doing this for? Oh, people think it's glamorous or it's fun to be the boss, to be the host with the most, the hostess with the mostest. Or I said, yeah, but that's all. Those sort of people don't last very long in the industry because that desire that disappears very quickly because that's not what it is. And you find out quite soon that, oh shit, it's you need to work really hard, and if you're not prepared for it, you shouldn't be doing this. So I don't know, like when COVID happened and people suddenly there's all these wannabe restaurateurs and everything, and some have done really well and continued on, and others have finished and parted ways. And I just hope that they chose for the reasons of why they wanted to do it. And for me, I always say we say this all the time to people. Why do we do what we do? It's the feeling of making people happy. And I'll leave with this one phrase that it was done by Will Gadara, who was the ex co-owner of 11 Madison Park. He wrote a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And he said in the book, quote, it's a classic quote, "Hospitality is a selfish pleasure. It feels great to make other people feel good." So when people celebrate in our restaurants, when people have fun, when people are smiling, you see that you feel happy that you helped create that. Your team was part of that. That's what we get off on. It's not about the other things that some people think it's about. We get off on, we feel great when people are happy and good in our places. That's what makes it worthwhile for us. That's why we do it.
Very much. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your, passion, your stories and your learnings. And I'm sure everybody listening to the podcast have a good time, just as I had, learning from your experiences. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.